I'm Cindy. Standing on the balcony of my apartment, the city lights twinkling below, a faint melody carried by the wind from a nearby wedding fills the air with laughter. It's been a year since that fateful day, and as I hold a glass of champagne in my hand, memories flood back. My family is part of the upper middle class. My father, Mr. Thompson, is a successful businessman, always busy with work and often relying on my mother to handle family matters. My mother, Mrs. Thompson, is a traditional woman. She's controlling and has always favored my younger sister, Lily. Lily, at 22, is charming but self-centered, used to getting whatever she wants. My husband, Jack, and I had been looking forward to our wedding day for so long. His parents had given us an apartment as a wedding gift, a symbol of our new beginning. But little did I know that this day would turn into a nightmare. During the wedding reception, as the music played and guests mingled, my mother approached me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Cindy, we've decided to give the apartment to Lily. She needs it more," she said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Lily, standing beside her, laughed and added, "Come on, sis, it's just an apartment." Jack, who was holding my hand, tightened his grip. The music faltered, and whispers spread through the reception hall. Guests exchanged awkward glances, pretending to sip their champagne. I could feel the humiliation creeping up on me, but Jack leaned in and whispered, "Smile. Let them think they won." Hours earlier, when I was getting ready in the bridal suite, my mother had come in and said, "Cindy, don't make this about you today. Lily's getting engaged next month, and we don't want any drama." I had laughed, thinking she was joking. Now, I realized how wrong I was. As dinner was served, I watched my family clinking glasses, acting like a supportive unit. My mother leaned over to my aunt and boasted, "Cindy is so understanding. She's always been so generous." That word, generous, had been a chain around my neck my whole life. Jack caught my eye from across the table and mouthed, "Not tonight." He was right. I lifted my glass and said, "To family. May we all get exactly what we deserve." They thought it was a toast, but I knew it was a promise. After the cake cutting, my mother pulled me aside near the floral arch. "Don't be sulky, dear. It's just an apartment. You'll have more once Jack's career takes off." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "You're right. I will. And none of them will have your name on the paperwork." Her smile faltered for a second, and she snapped, "You're overreacting." I replied, "Maybe. Or maybe I'm finally reacting the right way." That night, after the last guest left, Jack and I sat in the empty reception hall, surrounded by melting candles and half-eaten cake. He reached across the table and touched my hand. "Are you okay?" he asked. I exhaled slowly. "I will be, but this changes things. I think it's time I stop being the person they want me to be." He nodded in understanding. The next morning, the news spread like wildfire in the family chat. My mother texted, "It's a misunderstanding. Lily is just borrowing the apartment until she's settled." Borrowing? I laughed out loud. Jack glanced up from his coffee and said, "Let me guess. She's the victim again." "Always," I replied. I scrolled through messages from relatives, all trying to smooth things over but carefully avoiding taking responsibility. My father even chimed in, "It's family property. Don't make a scene." But it was too late. They had already made a mess. That afternoon, Jack found me at my desk, researching on my laptop. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Research," I said, my eyes on the screen. "The apartment is in my name. Mom can't just transfer it legally." He smiled and said, "You're not just hurt. You're dangerous when you're quiet." I replied, "I learned from the best," as I pulled up the title deed and saw that my mother's signature was nowhere on it. For days, I played their game, replying to texts with calmness. "Of course, Mom. Whatever's best for Lily." But behind the scenes, I contacted a property lawyer. After reviewing the documents, she confirmed, "You're well within your rights. They can't touch it without your consent." "Perfect," I said. "I won't stop them from moving in. I'll let the truth hit them." A week later, Lily and her fiancé posted photos online in front of the apartment, with the caption "Our New Beginning." I smiled, saved the post, and sent it to my lawyer with a simple message: "Begin the process." The eviction notice arrived faster than I expected. When Lily called, her voice was high-pitched with panic. "Cindy, what is this?" "Mom said it was taken care of." I said evenly, "It is. Legally." She couldn't believe it. "We've already moved in." I replied, "You moved into my apartment. That was your first mistake." My mother called next, her voice dripping with anger. "You're embarrassing the family." I calmly said, "No, I'm reminding them who earned what." For years, I had been the reliable one, always sacrificing for others. But seeing Lily act like the apartment was hers made me realize I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. That evening, Jack came home with takeout and a big grin. "Your lawyer emailed me. The case is airtight. They have to vacate by the end of the month. Do you want me there when you tell them?" I shook my head. "No, they need to hear it from me." 2 days later, I drove to the apartment. Boxes were stacked in the hallway, and Lily and her fiancé were arguing. My mother was there, red-faced, trying to talk to the property manager. When I walked in, everything went quiet. Lily's voice cracked, "You did this." I met her eyes and said, "You told me to relax. It was just an apartment. So relax. You'll find another." My mother's lip trembled. "You're being cruel." I set the paperwork on the counter and said, "No, I'm being clear." As I walked out, Lily shouted, "You'll regret this." Maybe, but at least the keys in my hand were finally mine. The following week, the family group chat exploded. Screenshots of what they called my betrayal were everywhere. My aunt messaged, "Family shouldn't sue family." My cousin added, "Couldn't you just share?" I muted the chat. Jack poured me coffee and said, "You did the right thing." I replied, "I know, but it's strange. Peace feels louder than their chaos." Later that afternoon, I met my lawyer to finalize the transfer of ownership. "Congratulations," she said, handing me the official papers. "The title is clean, completely yours." "Finally," I whispered, tracing my name on the papers. That night, I went back to the apartment. It was empty, with a faint smell of furniture polish. I walked through each room, my fingers grazing the walls. Every echo reminded me of the years I had spent trying to earn what was rightfully mine. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mother, "You've embarrassed us beyond repair. Lily is distraught. We hope you're happy." I typed back, "I'm not happy. I'm free. There's a difference." The message was read but remained unanswered. I turned off my phone, sat on the living room floor, and looked around. Jack joined me, bringing takeout and a glass of wine. "So, what's next?" he asked. I looked out the window at the city lights and said softly, "I think I'm finally home." 2 weeks later, the silence was broken. My father called first, but I let it ring. Then came a text from my mother, "We need to meet. It's about the family trust." Jack raised an eyebrow when I told him. "Let me guess. Lily's in trouble." "Worse," I replied. "They used the trust to fund her wedding renovations, and now the bank wants collateral." When I met them at their house, the air was thick with tension. My mother sat straight on the sofa, her hands clasped. "Cindy, dear, we all made mistakes. Family should help each other, right?" I said, "Sure, once the family stops treating help as an entitlement." My father cleared his throat and said, "We just need you to transfer temporary ownership of the apartment to the trust for a few months. I smiled and said, "You mean the apartment you gave away? The one that's legally mine." My mother snapped, "Don't be petty. We raised you better." I leaned forward and said, "You raised me to confuse love with obligation. I've unlearned it." Their faces fell. I continued, "I'm not your safety net, and I'm not Lily's consolation prize." My mother tried one last time, "You'll regret being so cruel." I stood up and said, "Maybe, but I'll regret staying small more." I walked out, the sunlight hitting my face like applause. Jack was waiting in the car. "How did it go?" he asked. I buckled my seatbelt and smiled. "Let's just say the trust finally broke, and I don't feel guilty." For weeks, the silence from my family was heavy. But this time, it didn't hurt. I was busier than ever. My architecture firm landed its biggest project, a waterfront renovation that Jack and I had dreamed about for years. At the ribbon cutting, Jack squeezed my hand and said, "You built this from ashes." I smiled and said, "Literally. And some ashes should stay buried." One night, I came home to a thick envelope with my parents' handwriting. Inside were a letter and a check. The note read, "To repay what you've spent fighting us. Let's not make this worse." I tore the check in half. "They still think this was about the apartment," I told Jack. He said, "Then it's time to show them it never was." 2 weeks later, I launched a new initiative through my firm, Haven Works, a fund to provide housing grants for young women who had suffered from financial or family manipulation. My lawyer called it poetic restitution. I called it clarity. When the local paper covered the story, they quoted me saying, "Home is not a gift. It's something you earn, protect, and never owe anyone for." My mother sent one last message, "You've changed." I typed back, "That was the point." Then I blocked her number, folded the letter, and looked around my living room. Everything was quiet, solid, and finally mine. As I stand here on the balcony, sipping my champagne, I know that I've come a long way. The apartment, once a source of pain, is now a symbol of my freedom and strength. And the sound of real laughter from the women in my foundation is my true inheritance.